I'm the alternate, so
Okay.
I'm happy to
You're happy
continue
to
to be
stay on.
alternate.
All right. Can you get a motion to have that organization stay, or that committee stay the same?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You finished.
Okay,
No post.
no opposed.
Okay.
Yep, we're good. Okay.
We do have one more, and the other one in the packet, we updated it for the meeting that is really the staff meeting where we do have a board representative. We've been treating that as an opportunity for board members to engage with staff, and it's the Energy Risk Committee. And so right now, currently, Alicia Dadala has been serving in that role with John Taylor as the alternate. John is interested in continuing on as the alternate, but if there's an interest in switching out.
I think for this one, there is benefit to this organization in actually having some rotation because it's a place where, I learned a lot from those interactions. And so I would recommend someone rotating on at this point. A lot, but
I would volunteer to do that.
Great. Okay. Motion to that effect.
move that Director Brennan serve on the committee with Director Taylor as alternate for the Power Supply Risk Committee moving forward.
Support. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Okay,
Perfect.
so now we're ready to go to consent?
Yes, but which is an opportunity maybe to move something around on the
Yep.
agenda. Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. So why don't we go, Jen, if you want to do the consent notice, and then we can proceed.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one board motion without discussion. Any member of the board staff or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If an item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single board action adopting the consent calendar.
Okay. Randy, why don't we start with your request to move order around?
Yeah, my recommendation would be to move my performance review discussion, which I will be asking for closed session,
Okay.
to after public comment in the meeting so that we can finish the rest of board business.
Okay. Any other requests to pull anything or adjustments, recusals? Okay. Input from the public? Okay. All right, so motion to approve that with the adjustment to in order.
And I'll second that.
I'll make the motion.
Oh, okay, and I'll
Thank you.
second that.
All right, anything else on the board? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, all right. Consent passes. So we have no unfinished business. So new business, consideration of approving the MDOT 3 Mile and Munson relocation from Tony.
Okay, so MDOT informed us about a year ago that they were going to add a second left-hand turn lane on US 31 turning onto 3 Mile Road heading south. There's really limited right-of-way there, so they actually worked out a deal with Michigan DNR, which owns the beach property there, to purchase some land to be able to extend the road to the north. In doing so, our poles are approximately 3 or 4 foot off the edge of the existing road, so they were going to be in essentially the middle of the new furthest north lane. So we worked with them about possible relocation options. They were very limited. They were trying to limit how much property they were purchasing. They were trying to keep the DNR have as much property as possible. So the right-of-way on the north side of the pavement is very thin, basically enough to pretty much put a pole just beyond the curb edge. So it's really tight, right next to the road, in an area that we've already had issues since I've been here. It's had the most actual outages caused by car hit poles in one particular area at the intersection there. So it kind of fits in with our engineering plan to try to get a lot of the facilities along this Munson corridor basically from Front Street all the way to this 3-mile area underground. There's a lot of opportunity we have because we have a lot of other facilities kind of in the neighborhood area there, so we can kind of poke out and feed a lot of those customers. The section between 3-mile and 4-mile is a little more difficult, and I know East Bay Township is talking about some other options, so that may be something in the future. But we are focusing on the particular area that we have to underground because of NDOT's right-of-way and their request that we move the facilities out of the roadway. So we're trying to tackle this portion here. We expanded the scope a little bit, so we really only had to go like 200 or 300 feet west of the intersection, but we decided to continue that all the way to basically in front of Culver's there, which is just past the creek entrance into the bay. And that was because we can just saw it as a good opportunity while we're there in the area. We could just remove some more of these unneeded poles. And so we're going to go ahead and do that. Or the plan is to go ahead and do that if approved. I think it's really, this area is in really with that whole Munson corridor, and why we would like to get rid of the poles along that corridor is it's very hard to maintain. It's obviously a busy highway. Whenever we do any work, there's rarely a driveway or any other thing we can get off the road and work on the poles. We typically have to rent signs and an arrow board and all that, and work with MDOT on coordinating a lane shift for traffic to bring it down to one lane to work. And I know another point is our employees particularly don't like working in that area, given, people are always in a hurry, it seems, on the highways and through town. So I think given all that, that's our recommendation, is we'd like to underground it, get these facilities out of the way. Again, we don't really have a choice. We do have to get stuff out of the way, but it makes the most sense to just underground this section of facilities. If anyone has any particular questions.
So thanks for the quick response. I emailed Brandy, and it was copied, and a response just in the past couple hours. 'Cause it feels like Light and Power is backed into a corner, like we either have to bury it or give up to customers.
Yes.
There aren't really any other options. So it just, that price tag is awful high, considering the other great things we could do with that much money for Light and Power, and that's where I'll support it because there's no other options, and we're not really going to give up those customers. But I feel like it's never going to pay itself back. It's not like, we invested $300,000 to keep 200 customers. Just, ugh. It feels like I'll hold your nose and vote yes. Like anything encouraging you can say, like how, I don't know.
Beyond the community benefits of it kind of beautifying that.
Yeah, but it's a big highway that's getting bigger and uglier, so it's not.
Yeah, that's also a downside.
It's not going to be very beautiful, so, okay.
There is the point around the poles not being.
Oh, no, the
Yeah,
safety
yeah, safety,
aspect,
yeah,
but
safety,
that
yeah.
whole, we could just take down the poles and give up to customers and
Well,
say,
yeah,
sorry.
right.
Did you want a positive?
Yeah,
So the
please.
positive is that we do get to keep our customers, and we do get to push forward our propaganda and our agenda. So the more customers we
Okay,
have,
okay,
the more
that's good,
influence
that's
we have.
something. All right,
So-
those will be some of our best customers.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Just when you mentioned the creek, are you actually going beyond the creek? And do you have
With
to
the
go,
removal of the overhead, yes.
do you have to go under the creek?
No, that's one reason why we wanted to get rid of that, because we're going over the creek right now, so we can just eliminate that. We don't have to go under the creek. We already have a line that runs underground
Oh,
along 3 Mile.
Okay, that's good. That's a positive.
I won't make Tim make the motion, but wouldn't anyone else want to?
I will move that the Light and Power Board authorize staff to proceed with the project, including project costs up to $307,233, more or less, subject to review as to substance by the executive director and as to form by general counsel for the MDOT 3 Mile and Munson relocation project.
Second.
Okay. Any public comment? Okay. Anything else from board?
No.
No. Okay. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Tony. All right. So skipping for now, Director of Evaluation, Carla.
Included in your packet is the March 31st, 2025 fiscal quarter-end quarter-end statements. For the electric fund, operating revenues are coming in at 78.26%. Operating expenses are at 74.23%. I just want to clarify one of the line items I mentioned that was under budget is the community investment funds. Those were just approved at the last month's board meeting, so they weren't expended as of March. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. Net income for the third quarter was $920,000 for the electric fund. Moving on to the fiber fund, the revenues were at 65.84% of budget, and expenses are at 47.73%. That's really favorable when you take in consideration that this year's budget included the expansion of Phase 2. So, revenues are just 10% under that three-quarter mark. So take that into consideration. And the fiber fund had a change in net position of $181,000. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on the statements.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Good. All right. Next up, here's going to the podium for the strategic plan update. Oh, it's the clicker.
So in your packet, I put together a report that provided a nice, good summary with a year in review of the strategic plan. I mean, it's really hard to believe that just 1 year ago, we approved our new mission, our new vision, values we developed, new priorities. And so we're 1 year in, and I wanted to just go ahead and spend the opportunity just to do kind of a 1 year in review and see kind of where we are. So just as a refresher, our priorities are community enrichment, customer experience, employee excellence, operational and financial excellence, technology transition, and environmental sustainability. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, as much detail as in the report, so I do want to, obviously, if you have questions, let me know. But I am going to touch on just some highlights of each of those. In the report, I also took an opportunity to explain what success looked like for each of those, at least how I'm looking at it right now. I am working on honing in on a really good reporting structure for you so that you can kind of see them more than just the summary updates that I'm giving you, so you can kind of track them. So one of the key pieces, and I know we've been talking about it, I've been sharing it over the past couple fiscal years really, is the value of our annual operating plan. It's really how we're operationalizing all of those strategies that we're working on. And this past year, we focused on 84 projects and initiatives. And what this graph is intended to show you, or the slide, is just really to show you that we're continuing to be mission-driven with everything that we're working on. Of those 86 or 84 projects, they touch on multiple priorities, and you probably have seen that throughout the fiscal year. But most of it, I would say, is really focused still on that operational and financial excellence. And a good tone of that is stability. That's really what the priority idea, working on policies, procedures, figuring out how to optimize efficiencies. That's really what a lot of that is about, what we have going on there. So the next couple of slides is I just want to talk about each priority. And community enrichment, in essence, to me, this is really the value of public power. This is where we are distinguishing ourselves from our competitors, whether they're investor-owned or, I don't want to say co-op, because I think co-ops pretty much have the same mission. They do the same thing. It's just they do it a little differently than we do. But, some big wins, I would say, is that, we rolled over what was not spent in the previous fiscal year to spend more money in the Community Investment Fund. I think that was a really good win with leadership, and we were able to support some really cool projects. And we were increasing the number of applicants that are coming in to apply for projects. It really is, quite frankly, quite exciting because we've got champions out there promoting our mission, talking and connecting. They're willing to be what I would say, champions and ambassadors for what we're trying to do when it comes to clean energy that's sustainable, that's innovative, that's reaching out, that's helping the customers. We continue to have an appearance with community events as much as we can, but it also means not only just going to the trade shows, like you see Hannah and Colin here, I think it was a week or so ago. They didn't know I was going to put that picture in there, by the way. But it also means the neighborhood groups. So showing up in the individual neighborhoods, whether or not the group is 10 people or 30, answering questions not only about what we're doing as it relates to our clean energy programs, but it's where we are with fiber. It's amazing. You show up and you're like, hey, I want to talk with you about rebates, incentives. Where are you with fiber? So it's been a really great, engaging platform. Scott has gotten used to showing up, and we just lead with him sometimes. But it really is a great opportunity to continue to connect with our customers, which leads into the customer experience. One of the biggest pieces of the customer experience, I'd like to say, is touching on the customers from, soup to nuts, so to speak, as it relates to where they are at the end point. Whether or not they're at home trying to make a decision on how to use their energy. We're rolling out our updated time of use rates. We're getting ready for that. Or it's being able to understand what choices are available to me with our programs. Again, there's some synergies, there's some thread lining that is pulling through here. One of the key things that we started as well is we kicked off our customer survey, which is a little bit more of an in-depth survey that we do every few years. It's a lengthy survey. We've asked our customers to have some patience with us. Right now, if a customer takes it online, we're trending about 10 minutes, which I guess we were shooting between 8 and 12. And then for the in-person interviews, those were getting a little lengthy in conversation. So we pivoted over the past week just to kind of shorten that a little bit. Still be able to get the bits of information that we wanted to get, because the goal is we're trying to baseline where we are with our strategic plan. So we are adding a lot more detail, a little on the lengthier side, but it will lead into the gap assessment that we're going to be working on in the next fiscal year. And then I also mentioned opening up the Hall Street Customer Service Center. I think that was really great. That was a good win. I think I mentioned a couple other items already. For employee excellence, the biggest trend here is 3 parts. It's the professional development when it comes to leadership, as well as for the rest of the organization. Change management, working on how we're communicating change with employees, not just with our customers, but with our employees, whether we're changing processes, changing where people sit. Just a lot of that we are working on enhancing. And then obviously the employee assessment survey was another baseline assessment to allow us to see where we're actually trending and where we have some work to improve when it comes to our employee engagement. And you'll hear a little bit more about that in the coming months. Again, these are things that are still part of the strategic plan, but they're giving us data to work for. It was the first survey that the organization, I guess based on my understanding, that we've ever done. And there's some interesting details in there. Overall, it was, I would say, I think it's a positive survey in that we got an 88% response rate. For an organization is just not doing it for the first time. And just doing a survey usually really helps with employees being heard. And so we're kind of working through that as well. The operational and financial excellence, I mentioned a little bit at the beginning of the presentation, the items that we're working on, but I do want to highlight that, we're continuing to be best in class. We're getting definite designation and acknowledgement through our American Public Power Association, other groups. I've been presenting at some conferences and panels, and I've heard nothing but like really great news about what we're doing up in Traverse City. So I would take that as like a huge win. It's really great. I've made connections. There's opportunities for us to work with work groups with the Michigan Public Service Commission. Really great things, and a lot of it is the work that we're doing. I mean, I would like to say that's part of the customer engagement, but it is part of us being operationally and financially resilient. It's a key point, too, to mention that predominantly because when you are on a clean energy journey and you do have individuals who question whether or not you are forsaking reliability for a clean energy portfolio. And we're going to be 40% renewable by the end of this, but basically first quarter of 26. I mean, we're making it happen. And not only are we making it happen, our numbers are great. So that is just something to highlight. We are not sacrificing care and service for the sake of our goals. And so again, that is where reliability metrics are still strong. Risk management and planning is something that, again, it's part of that fabric, those policies, those procedures. It's just adding resilience. Is anything broken? No. But as we grow and move forward, we just want to make certain that we're doing it better. The technology transition, it's interesting. I'd like to say, like, of those 84 projects, I mean, like, what, Scott, 80 of them have technology attached to it? So there is a lot on the plate when it comes to us moving ourselves forward with adopting and getting used to technology, getting used to working in the cloud, something like that, or understanding the value of calculators and how they can help inform customers on what they're doing. Those are some items that we've been really focused on moving forward as we move out our time of use rate. Customers are going to want to know how can my behavior impact my rate? Which rate should I go on? Should I go on Eco Strategy or Eco Champion? Those are some technology components there. Obviously, I like to say the bad guys keep getting smarter. And so cybersecurity continues to be a priority. Us being able to do penetration testing. I think Scott has a term calling some people happy clickers. But, you know, we're continuously challenging and testing ourselves. So, and then we're learning from it. I think one of the cool opportunities we'll have moving into the next fiscal year is something that we really started this fiscal year, is really working with the city on examining the biogas that can be captured. What a great demonstration opportunity. And so we're doing it, and who knows, maybe we'll be presenting on that in the near future, but we're looking forward to the engagement with the city. It's very positive and exciting. You know, this is a project that Tony, you know, it's interesting. We started working on it with staff, and Tony, it came up on Tony's agenda. And I said, well, it's okay, Tony. You know, we don't have to rush too fast on it. He's so excited. He's like, oh, no. I've already done a preliminary study. I've already started working on this. This is going to be great. We need to keep moving. So we've got champions amongst the staff that are moving these initiatives forward, and I just get to take credit for it. And last but certainly not least, I mentioned when it comes to our environmental sustainability, just as a refresher, this priority had like three major components. The first one was the climate action plan. So items and details that are a part of the climate action plan, moving that forward. And as you remember, there's got a lot going on with the climate action plan, from rates, energy portfolio, energy storage. We're working on battery storage, all of those items, education. The other piece deals with our operations. What are we doing? You know, one of the things that Jake was successful with these remodel of the Building D was that it's all electric. And us being able to lead by example. You know, we're looking at our fleet, we're looking at our facilities, we're trying to get bumps and bruises for our customers, because the more we are challenged, the more we can talk through the reality of how they can navigate and work around it. A third piece, which really actually is a second piece, is just everything else in between. So it's dealing with conversations with water conservation. Not our core business, but it's definitely part of our mission. It's, you know, looking all around. Now, looking ahead, a couple of these items, I mean, I think they should be relatively self-explanatory, but we are going to continue on the journey with our community partnerships. One of the things I'm looking forward to is looking at maybe doing a request for proposal for nonprofits to help promote our education. Maybe that is something that we can move forward and promote. Looking at an opportunity to also to see, are there any other regional partnerships that we can be leveraging? Whether it's not getting a list of contractors. We had a great turnout at the contractor breakfast that we hosted a couple weeks ago. A lot of great partners that Jake has had the opportunity to work with over the past year or so. Wouldn't it be great if a customer asks who does this and we can say, obviously disclaimer with liability, hey, I know X, Y, and Z does this. That's what we're looking to really kind of push the envelope on as we move into the next fiscal year. I mentioned the customer gap assessment, the employee experience action plan. Thrive is mentioned. One of the things that we're going to be doing is we're going to put together a cross-functional group within the organization to work through and put together the action plan that's part of that employee assessment survey. So we're calling the group Thrive predominantly just to work on culture, and it will be individuals involved, whether or not they're in the office or in the field. We mentioned the capacitor bank, and that's just like one example. And then obviously continuing on with cybersecurity, and then clearly advancing our decarbonization strategy, or rather our clean energy strategy. Prioritizing the EV infrastructure. I've received a number of thoughts and comments on how that's going, and so that'll be a priority for us moving forward. And then obviously, we're in the middle of a battery study. So that will be something really great to get the fruits of. As a matter of fact, that'll be one of the things that we'll talk about at the Energy Risk Committee at some particular point. So I know I blew through that really fast, and even the 15-page report that I gave you quite frankly, it just scratched the surface of everything that we have going on. But I at least wanted to leave you with some points so that it could at least spark questions. Like, one, do you have more specific questions on certain things you haven't heard about? Are there items that you would like to hear more information about that I'm not sharing with you? And if you want an opportunity to think about it and get back with me, that works out too. But I, would be remiss if I didn't celebrate our 1-year anniversary.
I have something. That all is amazing. It's been a great year. I've only been part of that year. So one question that I have, though, is under the strategic progress for the environmental sustainability element, and that is the battery storage feasibility study that I don't really know that much about. Is there a quick synopsis of that you could share? What does that mean? Where is it? What is it?
Yeah, so one of the things that we talked about in our climate action plan was looking at our energy portfolio. Right now, we have 100% renewable energy by or before 2040. That includes wind and solar, really. That's really what that includes. There are other opportunities, and we talked about technology. How does technology support when the sun's not shining and when the wind isn't blowing? And so we have engaged Ascend Analytics to do a study that will, in essence, look at our distribution system and give us a sense of a couple things. One, is there an opportunity to attach a battery to maybe a substation? Maybe it's an opportunity to look at attaching the battery to a renewable source. Maybe it's looking at something that's a little bit more larger scale. So it really is a wide range of options that we're exploring, and it'll be able to give us more of a more succinct strategy on how to leverage that battery storage as it relates to our portfolio goal. When it comes to the substation, and I'd like to just kind of mention this, one of the values that's associated with that is even though it might not necessarily obviously be generating energy, what it does do is it minimizes how much thermal resources you're pulling off the grid. So that's the value of the storage. It's filling in, I would say, that gap. And it'll lead into what I would say eventually an emissions-driven strategy. Carla covered, I think, in our budget presentation that since our utility set 100% renewable goal in 2018, we've had a carbon reduction of about 54%. That's pretty great. Now, battery storage allows us to figure out how to push that forward. Batteries might be behind the customer meter. Maybe it's in front of the customer meter. That's really what the study is going to help us explain.
which also helps with the whole reliability concern.
Absolutely, for certain.
Great, thanks.
Other questions, comments?
Sure. Just quick comment, like, because it's tied into that, there's been a delay in the solar and battery electric storage program that the city is working with Jacobs on at the wastewater treatment plant. And I think the city has asked, there's so many participants in it, but whether it's technically Jacobs asking or the city asking, but asked the grant provider, who's the state of Michigan or a part of the state of Michigan, to give an extension for that. I haven't heard back, but it sounds likely that the extension will be provided, but that means that completion is delayed by some number of months, and I don't have that. But the reason I bring it up is hopefully with this feasibility, because that's more of a let's crunch some numbers feasibility, and then actually having some batteries in our footprint here that essentially owned by the city, but hopefully there can be some cooperation and collaboration to how best to use these, how do they perform, what can we learn from it, that sort of thing. But I know from the city side, we need to ask kindly of Light and Power to help, because there is no expertise on the city side. So we will have this facility, but with no expertise. And so I think we have to not be shy about asking Light and Power to help.
Absolutely. No, understandable. I have a note. I'll follow up with the city and kind of see what the status is of their application, and then we'll look on folding them into that battery. We'll make certain we identify that as a potential resource.
Thanks.
And maybe that's our doorway into that conversation.
Is another conversation to have with the city, and maybe I just need to learn more about the biogas capture that you're working on with the city. Where is that, and what is that? Like, how does that look?
So, Tony, you want to talk about it? I won't do you any justice. I will tell you, we are working directly with the city, though, but Tony can definitely fill you in.
So it's at the wastewater treatment plant. Right now, they're obviously through the sewage that they collect, there's off-gassing of like methane and other gases, combustible gases. So right now, they capture that. They do use some for boilers to kind of heat for some of their internal processes, as well as heat the buildings. But they're currently venting a lot of that or burning it off in a stack. Essentially, it's just burning and going in the atmosphere. Nothing's being created with that. So this would be taking that gas, piping it into a generator, and actually generating electricity with that. They've guesstimated that it's like about 200 kW, so 200 kilowatt generator we could power, and it basically would be running about 95% of the time, so near continuous operation. It's about 0.5% of our total power portfolio, but that's nice local generation, and it is considered renewable because it's a gas that's going to be created regardless, and we can actually put that to good use.
Have you figured out what the reduction is in the greenhouse gas emissions by capturing that?
No, I didn't. I can do that. I just haven't
That'd be kind of
done
fun
that.
to find out.
So I do know, I think the city are they working, they applied for a grant.
Yeah, they
right?
applied for a grant for it currently, so waiting to hear back on the grant. And basically, the grant would cover all the costs to actually install the system.
Who did they apply to?
I would have to look. I don't remember offhand.
My guess is
Yeah, I think it was a state grant. I think it was MPSC.
We'll knock on wood for that.
yeah, we'll see.
At what point would that have to be implemented? Could it be, after the fact, or does it need to align with anything else that's happening, or can that be a whenever?
Yeah, it can be whenever. There's no timeline or anything,
Okay.
so that can easily be integrated into our grid at any point in time, from now or in the future.
That's good. Thanks.
Anything else on the board? I'll just add how, thank you for acknowledging our anniversary with this and how great this is to be able to have, I think there's the broad piece here that you're going through, but then to have these, interesting specifics that we have the ability to get into and hear about. So it's really great.
Yeah, thank you. So many great things. I mean, they really are, honestly. Okay, so that's all I had.
All right. So then from there, anything from the board?
Just a quick shout out to Jacob, who was quoted in a University of Michigan newsletter article about the home energy program. Did you read it?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, it was a great article.
Yeah, it was. It was, I just read it today, in fact, and it covered what's going on in Holland and how this is, spreading across the state, and highlighted the University of Michigan student who gave us his program that he developed with Jacob and TCLP, and it was a good write-up, and it seemed like there's a lot of energy behind this statewide. So, good job.
Excellent. Great. Anything else from the board? Okay. Any public comment? Okay. So then looping back around to, what?
I do have one more thing.
Oh, one more thing, sorry.
I'm so sorry. So Jake reminded me, just as a reminder, if you are interested, speaking of energy audit, of actually participating, so we're kind of in, I would say, the test phase, and if you're interested in being kind of our guinea pigs and signing up for an evaluation of your home and allowing his team to come and connect, let's do that, because we're learning from that experience, and that gets us closer to our goal. So I was supposed to remember to mention that, so thank you, Jake.
I'll sign up.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
they've
we'll
been
get you
planning on
before
doing
you
it as
leave,
well.
okay.
Right.
Sorry, thank
No
you.
problem.
I
Okay.
appreciate it.
All right, so now we're back up to the executive director evaluation. So as Brandy had alluded to at the top in terms of shifting things around, the request is to go into closed session to discuss her evaluation. So that's a roll call vote. So we would go to that and then just come back to adjourn from that essentially. So any other comments or questions on that? Otherwise, a motion to go into closed session would be appreciated.
I move to go into closed session.
There's a,
There's a whole thing.
there's a,
Okay, go.
I have it up. Sorry.
Thanks.
I move that the Light and Power Board enter into closed session immediately following public comment to consider the annual personnel evaluation of the executive director and permitted by the Open Meetings Act, MCL 15.268, parentheses 1, parentheses A.
you. That's
I second.
perfect. All right, so then because it is a closed session, we do have to do a roll vote.
Tobin,
Yes.
Brennan,
Yes.
Stanley,
Yes.
Werner,
Yes.
Davila,
Yes.
Heiberger.
Yes. All right. We'll be back.
If you will just do the favor of what time you adjourn, because she will not, or she may hang out, because you're not going to come back up here. So Joanne can just end the session, leave, and you just give me.
I will.